sure that everyone has seen ants in their life, but I doubt that many people have thought about the hard lives these small but amazing creatures lead. Here, on the territory of Ilaranta, a holiday village, there are a great number of ant nests. This is one of the largest of them, Old Pal. I often passed by Old Pal while I was roaming the nearby forests. It was amazing to see ants going up trees or carrying pine needles 3 times as big as themselves. I wondered how an ant family can possibly function. To find out all I could about ants, I had to read 1.5 books, watch 2 films, and buy special clothing to conduct several experiments of my own. Ilaranta is located in the northwest of Russia, near the Finland border, right on the banks of the Bolshoye Lesnoye Lake. The glacier in question brought thousands of boulders with it, and they are still here now on the surface. There is very little soil because the climate is nearly subarctic. The grounds are basically a fir and pine forest with here and there a birch. Old Pal is by far the largest out of the 13 ant nests in the area. It stands on a granite outcrop right on the banks of the Bolshoye Lesnoye Lake, near a much used footpath. When you look at an ant nest, you see thousands of ants swarming all over it, and they all look exactly the same, don't they? But in fact the ants you see are adult worker ants, which are sterile females. But if you look a bit closer, you can sometimes see these ants carrying small white cylinders. These are either pupas or larvae. The larvae of an ant is born from a tiny white egg. It has a cylindrical body with a small, poorly defined head with jaws. Larvae can curl, but they can't move on their own properly. They are semi-transparent, with tiny hairs all over their bodies, which prevent several larvae from gluing together. Their internal organs can be seen as a black spot inside their bodies. When a larvae reaches a certain age, it covers with a solid white cocoon and becomes a pupa. Inside this cocoon, the pupa develops legs, its body is divided into a head, chest and abdomen, and it emerges from the cocoon as a fully grown ant. The ants we found at Old Pal had 5 eyes, 3 small simple ones marked in red, and 2 big faceted ones marked in blue. They have 2 long antennae attached to their heads and a pair of jaws. Their chest is relatively small and curved, orange, except 1 or 2 black spots at the top. The chest is attached to the abdomen by a small pedicle. The abdomen is the largest part of the ant's body. It is dark brown or black and divided into 3 parts by 2 seams along which the abdomen can curl. The sting at the end of the abdomen is tiny and can only be seen when an ant gets into the aggressive position. All the aforementioned features, and also the facts that our ants live in Europe and build big ant nests, proves that the ants from Old Pal belong to the Formica rufa species. But you don't see ants only on the ant nest, do you? You can also see them on the ground about. The ants from the Formica rufa species have several well-worn roads, which they use to get to food supplies. These are the so-called ant roads. Old Pal has 5 roads. The first 3 roads are almost identical. They are wide, long, and with relatively low ant activity. Only about 40 ants cross a section in 1 minute. All of these roads lead to pine or fir trees. Ants carry small dead and half-dead insects and also building material along them. Such roads are called food roads. The 4th road is narrow and short and leads to a pine tree about a meter away from Old Pal. The activity of this road is much higher, about 250 ants per minute. Only building material is carried along this road. We believe that this road leads to a very large colony of aphids. Ants farm aphids and eat the honeydew they release. The fifth road is very different. This is the only road to lead to another ant nest, the ant nest undead. The undead got its name because last summer it was empty. Ants carry pupas and larvae in both directions, as well as building material and food along this road. This is called an exchange road. Ants exchange pupas and larvae to be on good terms, so that they can use the same foraging area together. But an exchange road can only appear between a mother and a daughter ant nest. Old Pal is much bigger and older than the undead, which appeared only this summer. We believe that the undead is the daughter nest of Old Pal. This is one of the ways in which ant nests are reproduced. But the activity of ants can vary. They follow a certain year-round cycle. The life of an ant family begins in early spring, when the snow melts off the ground. Ants cluster in big groups on the surface of the ant nest to warm up. Then they go back inside the ant nest and heat it with their bodies. In the spring, ants aren't very active outside the ant nest. They still mainly feed off the food they gathered last summer, and the roads are weak or non-existent. In summer, the activity of ants reaches its peak. They are busy gathering food and reproducing. A very important event happens at the beginning of summer, the mating flight. During the mating flight, thousands of winged reproductive male and female ants, called ellets, creep up from the ant nest and fly away. We wanted to catch several ellets, so we built special traps. These are hexagonal domes covered with buttercloth and connected to a plastic bottle by a tube. The ellets were supposed to fly up the tube and into the bottle and stay there. But none of them wanted to take off under the dome of the tube, so we had to collect them manually. The mating flight in Old Pal lasted 2 days. On the first day there were only several dozen ellets, but on the second day there were at least a few hundred ellets swarming all over the trap. On both days the ants tried to climb as high as they could, specifically to the tube. But even when they reached that, they did not always fly off immediately. They strolled about on the tube for a while. Oh, and here's one trying to work its wings. But no, something doesn't seem to be working properly. This goes on for quite a while. Until... yes, it finally takes off. When the ellets finally manage to get airborne, they gather into big groups and mate. Then the males die, and the females drop their wings and return to their home ant nests or try to start new ones. In summer, the primary objective of ants is to collect as much food as they can for the oncoming winter. In natural conditions, ants carry flies, beetles, caterpillars, and other insects along their rows. One ant can carry a huge weight, like a fly, on his own. If the food is too heavy for one ant, a group of ants can carry it. When even a group of ants can't manage it, they make a temporary warehouse for it. Here are the photos of a big caterpillar that the ants managed to kill at 12 o'clock, when it is still fully visible, at 3 o'clock when only a tiny bit of it can still be seen, and at 8 o'clock when it is fully covered. Ants don't like berries. There are a lot of blueberry bushes around Old Pal, and the ants don't touch any of them. We wanted to find out what ants like to eat if they have a choice. We offered the ants samples of different types of food. It turned out that ants like meat and bread, but don't like vegetables and fruits. One of the samples of food we offered them was a piece of chicken. The ants ignored it for quite a long time. But then several ants began dragging it towards the main body of the nest. They were quickly joined by a few other ants, and the chicken soon disappeared inside Old Pal. We also offered the ants some sugar and a piece of lolly. The ants showed a remarkable lack of interest in them. Occasionally some ants might pause and sniff at the samples, but all of them quickly went on their way. We were surprised, because we expect them to immediately pounce on such a pure source of energy as sugar. Placed a dead fly next to the piece of sugar to see if perhaps they were in a bad mood, but, well, as you can see, they showed a touch more interest in the fly. We started thinking about it, and remembered that many websites recommend feeding ants with a sugar solution. So we offered ants, in turn, some sugar solution, some honey solution, and some expired Coca-Cola. The ants were most interested in the sugar solution, although some did try the Coca-Cola. An ant family has to have a complex communication system to function properly. This is believed to be based mainly on smell. When a reconnaissance ant leaves its nest, it leaves behind itself a weak smelling trail so that it can find its way back home. If it finds some food, it returns back to its nest, again marking its path with smell. The other ants find and follow it, reinforcing the already existing track. This is how an ant road is formed. We wanted to find out exactly how attractive the smell of a road is for an ant from Old Pal. First we placed an ant onto a clean piece of buttercloth to see how it would behave in a completely new environment. The ant started exploring its new surroundings and quickly left the experimental field. We needed a smell which would contain the ant inside the experimental field. We applied a circle of repellent onto the buttercloth and put another ant inside it to see what would happen. Apparently the ant was terrified of the repellent and couldn't stand being near it. Next, we placed 2 paper towel bridges over the repellent circle. One was clean. The other one had been hanging on one of Old Pal's roads overnight and soaking up the ant's smell. Then we placed another ant inside the circle and watched. Here she makes a valiant try to escape, but she turned at the last second. She crossed over one bridge, but she didn't see it. She makes one more try, but the repellent keeps driving her away, as you see. Here she's found the smelly bridge, and yes, she leaves the repellent circle. We repeated this experiment a few more times with different ants, and 5 out of 5 of them chose the smelly bridge. Our experiments with ants took up the whole of July and August. Then it took a further 4 months to write the report and make this film. During this time we found out, or confirmed, a lot about ants. Like the fact that they have 5 eyes, which I did not really believe. Or that they prefer to eat meat and bread and drink Coca-Cola and sugary water. Perhaps not the most healthy diet, but keeping in mind that ants work day and night, I'm sure they need all the energy they can get. After watching this video, I hope that people will know not to walk over ant roads so as not to disrupt them. And if you've got a few spare pieces of meat, give them to the ants. Ants kill flies and mosquitoes, which I bet you dislike heartily. After being with us for the whole of summer, even my 4-year-old sister knows now that it is best to feed ants with chicken.